Back, everyone. We continue our coverage today of the deadly flooding in the Texas Hill Country. For the very first time, 14-year-old twins from Waco, both rescued from their summer camps on the Guadalupe River this past week, are talking in detail about their horrific and heartbreaking experience. Clara Shelton was a camper at Camp Mystic, where 27 campers and staff have now been confirmed dead and others remain missing at this hour. And Nolan, here's Nolan Shelton. He was a camper 6 miles downstream at an all-boys camp called Camp La Junta, which was devastated by the floodwaters. Both believed at times the other did not make it out alive. Clara and Nolan, along with their mother Suzanne, who was also a camper at Camp Mystic back when she was a little girl, are joining us now to talk. Guys, thanks so much for being here with us. I know it's been a tough week. Clara, I'm going to start with you. You were a camper at Camp Mystic. Our hearts, like all over the world, are breaking for what happened there. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm just very, very thankful that my brother and I were found safe and able to make it home to our families, but I'm also still continuing to pray for the girls that are still missing and for the families of the girls that were less fortunate.
And Nolan, what about you?
I'm just glad that everyone at my camp was able to get out safely, and there were probably only a couple injuries, nothing serious, but our counselors were prepared for this. It's not like that we were expecting it or anything. I'm just glad that everyone was okay in the end for my camp.
Suzanne, I've actually known your twins since they were born. Your husband is a cousin of mine from back home in Paris, Texas, and so I've had a chance to watch these kids grow up. I think every mom, this story has just been, or parent, or family member, has just been so hard to see these young children experience so much. What has that been like for you as a mom to have gone through this experience with your kids?
It's unimaginable. We are so blessed and so thankful to have our children home with us. And it was such a scary time whenever we didn't know exactly all the details, and you kept hearing in the camps were doing a good job of keeping people updated, but they were still, especially Camp Mystic was still searching, and it was just, you're relieved, but you almost also are overwhelmed with a sense of guilt because you got to bring your 2 children home and other families weren't as fortunate, and it's just absolutely unimaginable what these kids went through, the traumatic things they witnessed and experienced, and I'm still almost in disbelief that this actually happened.
Clara, take me back to July the 4th. I guess the night of July the 3rd, you were sleeping in the nurse's cabin because you weren't feeling well, and your cabin is on higher ground. The nurse's cabin is also on higher ground, just the logistics of the way the camp is set up. When did you realize that something was wrong?
It was around the middle of the night, from probably 12 to 2. I heard a counselor come into our cabin and say, "Hey, our cabin's flooding, we need help." And I remember her saying, "It's coming in quick, it's coming from the closet. The girls don't know yet." And so that cabin ended up being fine, but it was extremely flooded, and that's kind of whenever I knew that this wasn't just an ordinary storm, but I still didn't know the level that it would make its way to.
You told me throughout the night you kept hearing people coming into the nurse's station, and they weren't talking directly to you, but you heard enough to know at some point, you think it was around 4 a.m., that, okay, this is more than just a thunderstorm.
I heard on the walkie-talkie in the kitchen that there were girls on top of the roofs. That's all I heard, though. I heard girls on roofs.
So Nolan, I want to go to your camp. You're about 6 miles down the road at Camp La Junta. It's an all-boys camp that you've loved and attended for 8 years now. When did you realize that something was going wrong?
Well, it was about 2 a.m. and I just woke up to someone screaming, we're taking in water, our cabin's flooding. And it wasn't that bad, but we are taking in water, of course, so stuff's getting ruined. But we thought we were the only cabin getting filled with water. And we just thought oh, we're still gonna have to go attend activities tomorrow, do all this, wake up at 6 a.m., people would go do maintenance, and it would just be a normal day. And it wasn't till we went back to sleep, then woke up later learning that the whole camp was destroyed. It was bad.
This was about 7 o'clock in the morning, you told me, and you were also on higher ground, so that's why you had no idea what was happening at the cabins that were below you.
We were separated from the rest of the camp too, so that's why we didn't know. And whenever our counselors actually tried going out to go see what was up and all that, and it was just water rushing down, he said, like he couldn't even get by.
There's been videos that have been shared online that show literal cabins from your camp floating down the river.
Those are called casas. It's mainly for like staff members, or we have girl counselors that attend, and they go to like their own cabins, and it was a staff cabin. They're not that like sturdy, so that's why it picked up and just washed away.
So Clara, at 7 o'clock in the morning, you said that's when you were being evacuated to a hall that was on higher ground. It's where all the kids were starting to gather. And was it on that walk to the evacuation when you got there that you were like, okay, this is much more serious than just a serious thunderstorm?
Whenever the nurses took me up to James Hall to just, I don't know, I guess go get food or
A dining hall. James Hall's a dining hall.
I saw the girls. I mean, there were so many girls crying, throwing up, and I saw blood. And this is whenever I realized, okay, like, this is really something that's happening. And then around then, too, is whenever I heard helicopters flying around the camp.
And the helicopters began to land on buildings that you could see?
On buildings, and I saw a helicopter, like, I saw them landing in, like, the parking lot around James Hall, because there was a parking lot there where there were a lot of counselors that had their cars there. Because the other parking lot, I don't know if you saw a video, but there were cars completely on top of each other, and there were also girls sitting in the parking lot wrapped up in blankets, and it was just something I thought out.
Communication, and Suzanne, you told me this at this particular area in Hunt. I mean, you said usually when you drop your kids off, you're getting no cell phone service at all. Plus, at a lot of Christian camps or youth camps, they take up cell phones, and there's no way, you guys, neither one of you had a cell phone or a watch, so we're kind of estimating on all these times as well to be able to know exactly, you know, what time something happened. But you do know that around 6:50 in the morning, you received word from Nolan's camp, and that was the first word that you got. What did they tell you?
They told us that there was serious flooding at the camp, and that all the phone lines were down, the power was out, but that all of the boys at Camp Lahunna had been accounted for and were safe, and they would keep us posted as the day went on, and I guess assessing what all was happening. And we hadn't heard anything from Mystic at that time. And Clara's campus is higher up at Cypress Lake, and so the girls that were getting evacuated to James Hall that she saw that morning were down at the Guadalupe campus, and they were coming up there.
Tell me about the email you got at 10 o'clock, which was the first time you heard from
Yeah, it was
Camp
like 10
Mystic.
or 11, and it was just saying that if you have not been directly contacted, your daughter is safe and accounted for, and we will continue to update as we know more. But like you said, the service out there just on a regular day or camp drop-off is very, very minimal.
Clara, when did you first get word that there were girls missing from your camp? Do you remember someone talking about it around you, or was it when you actually witnessed something with your own eyes?
We knew nothing. I mean, we knew absolutely nothing. It was pretty much a bunch of rumors until we actually went to the camp and saw for our own eyes.
Okay, so let's talk about the evacuation. You guys, both of you, stayed on your campgrounds all day long while parents are going to reunification centers, and I can only imagine how chaotic it was, truly, for everybody. So, Nolan, you get evacuated first. Claire, I want to talk about your evacuation because you took multiple different types of vehicles, one of which was some sort of military vehicle. You believe you were riding in the back, that it was a truck that was pulling some sort of boat. That's what you were in first?
Mm-hmm. It was pulling a boat, and it was like army truck, and like it didn't really have like a regular truck bed. It was like the green, the
benches.
the benches. Yes.
Okay, so you're riding in that, and then at some point, you also get on a school bus. I want to pull up that video that we have that a nurse, a nurse that you knew, shot this footage. You were on that bus, and this video has been seen millions and millions of times around the world. You all were singing hymns, and I think those of us who have attended camps like this, I worked at a youth camp. I counseled 8 and 9-year-old girls every summer of college. We sang these same songs. It kind of takes you back to that feeling that you have of feeling like when you're scared, this is something you can do to kind of calm yourself. Is that what you were feeling when you were singing this song?
Yes, I definitely do. A lot of us were very religious girls that attended that camp, and so we knew that singing would help comfort the other girls. So it was kind of like we just all kind of started singing together, and it really made a difference.
Oh my God.
There was joy on that bus from the singing.
And you told me some of the worst things you saw
Yes.
is when you were being evacuated. You saw some girls that were rescued, and you saw some girls that didn't make it out alive, which is truly beyond heartbreaking. You also passed Nolan's camp during the footage of that song. You were passing Camp La Junta, and you said, I know that camp like the back of my hand. I've dropped my brother off there and picked him up so many times, and you didn't recognize it.
Not one bit. The gates were bent backwards, cabins were missing, the dining hall wasn't even there anymore. There's this big field that they have at their camp, and you couldn't even tell that was that field because it was covered in water. It's where they would put all the trunks, and you'd run out and wait for the boys to come run out to you, and it's just something that will never happen again.
Were you worried that you might never see your twin again?
Yes, after I had seen my brother's campgrounds, I was almost convinced that I would never get to be in the presence of him again.
Nolan, you told me you had the same feeling.
Yes, so whenever everyone kept on talking about Mystic and how there were like people missing, people dead, that's when I thought my sister could be one of those people, and I just have to prepare for the worst.
When you say Owen, is that someone that worked at your camp? Did you say who's you were just saying? Oh, when people were just saying that, you overheard
yes.
people saying.
Like the counselors at my camp somehow got all this information saying there were 13 people dead, a lot missing, and I was just really scared that my sister could be one of them.
When did you know that both of your kids were safe? I guess when you saw them.
I mean, truly, whenever we saw him, like I said, in that first email from La Junta, we knew that there was no missing boys and no tragedies at La Junta. And then whenever we had gotten the Mystic email and we had not been contacted directly, but I mean, still you have this feeling until you see him. And we got Nolan first at the Presbyterian Church in Kerrville. And then as soon as we got him, we headed straight to the elementary school in Ingram, where the girls were eventually going to be bused after first they went to the high school and they got checked out medically, and then they got bused over to the elementary school, and that's where we could check them out and pick them up.
Clara, you told me when you arrived on the bus to the reunification center where your mom and Nolan was waiting at this point, and your father, Dane, the first person that you saw when you got off the bus was
My brother, and it was definitely one of the best moments of my life. But again, that day had also been one of the worst moments of my life. There were so many emotions, but that one was truly an emotion that stuck with me, because just being able to get to see him perfectly fine and alive there after thinking of all the possibilities that could happen really just made me feel so thankful that he was there.
Your mom told me that when you all got off the bus, you had to go through several checkpoints. They had to make sure that they were positively identifying who belonged with who. You all had some mental health checks that you had to do to be released as well. And then the first person that you get an opportunity to hug is your mom. And you told me a story about how you saw your dad, but you saw Nolan at the same time, and you ran into your twins' arms. And what was that moment like for you?
It was so incredibly heartwarming almost, but at the same time heartbreaking because, and I also felt guilty. I felt guilty because I was able to stand there and hug my sibling when I could see people around me crying because theirs weren't there.
You told me last night, we talked pretty extensively last night, that you feel like you're already living with survivor's guilt. Is that a feeling you share also, Nolan?
It's kind of hard to have survivor's guilt, but I do feel it sometimes because no one died at my camp, and it's just that it was just a natural disaster. Anything could have happened. I do feel survivor's guilt though because, I mean, people did die, and it's just bad because I feel like I could have just done more to be there for everyone else and stuff, but.
Clara, you told me you had an encounter with one of the precious little girls. I cannot even look at their photographs.
Heartbreaking.
Absolutely heartbreaking. You said you saw one of them when you were fishing the day before, and then when you saw the photographs, those who didn't make it.
I was able to recognize which one she was. We were looking at something on the ground, and there was this little like gecko thing. It was on the ground, and a lot of girls were pointing at it and looking, and she happened to be one of the little campers with so much curiosity that she wanted to see it too.
What do you want people to know about Dick Eastland, which was the owner of Camp Mystic and a dear friend of your family's, and he died trying to get those girls to safety?
I would like people to know that he was definitely one of the most kind-hearted people that you would have ever met, and he was definitely this kind of person that did not really think about himself, only thought about other people. And so I know that he was happy with himself at least after being able to save girls, and I know that that's what he truly cared about in his heart, was that the girls were okay.
Suzanne, I saw a post by, I believe it's his grandson, who said if he didn't die of natural causes, this is how he would have wanted to go.
100%. He and his wife Twitty, they loved Camp Mystic. They loved those girls. They poured into them. They helped, both of these camps helped shape our children to be the people that they are today. They are amazing. I think camp is a wonderful thing for children. I hate that this is how this happened, because they were both their happy places. They loved going there each summer, and whenever we'd pick them up, they were so joyful, and it just had the time of their life. And Dick and his wife, along with the Fineskis who have Camp La Junta, they are just, I hate what all of these families are going through, because they thought of their campers as family too, and treated everyone like that. Throughout the year you would hear from them, and I mean, they're just amazing.
It's
amazing people.
It's truly unthinkable to for any of us to try to put ourselves in the shoes of those families that have lost
Can't imagine.
children, that are still looking for children. And you said when you were at the reunification center, it was so apparent. Those that were looking up, I guess there was some sort of sign that would tell you when your child's bus was arriving.
And the names of the campers on the bus that were coming from the high school after they'd been checked, and then by doctors, and were back on another bus to come over to the elementary school. They were listed up there, and they would call them out. And if you weren't in that part of the gym at that point, you could come back and check and see if your daughter's bus was on its way, or if they'd arrived from camp to the first station. So you just kind of knew, and there was, so you could tell the parents that were just waiting and hoping that their daughters' names would appear on those lists.
Is there anything that the two of you would like to say to, we've heard so many stories of heroism and bravery of counselors Nolan, you told me at your camp there were just so many stories shared about counselors literally hoisting boys up to get to the rafters so that they could stay above the floodwaters.
Yes, there were some counselors talking about their experience of it, and there was this one counselor saying that he had to like get his kids out of the window or something when there was water just rushing in, and there was a kid that was trying to grab all his stuff, and the counselor said, "You got to get out of here, or else you're gonna die." And that just sounded like horrible. It was horrible. There was another counselor talking about how he woke up and he felt water on him, but he thought it was another counselor pranking him at first. But then he looked outside of his window, and the field that he knew, it was covered in water. That he said it looked like an ocean. It was bad, and there were kids having to climb on their rafters so they wouldn't drown. It was bad.
And Nolan's whole dining hall was destroyed. And tell her about the helicopters.
Yes, there were so many helicopters. They're from all different like organizations and stuff. There was this group of helicopters from this one guy that lived next to camp, and he is the one who like kept on giving us food and stuff. I heard it was, and he wasn't. They weren't able to land, so they had to drop it from like 40 feet in the air. It was
like peaches and beef jerky.
peaches, all that, like canned peaches, everything.
Susanna, we have different perspective now than when we were 19, 20 years old. And when I was working at a summer camp, I was 19, 20 years old. And I think that's something that at times you can lose sight of, is that these were kids.
These were kids too.
These kids that were trying to get these children to safety had just left their mom and dad's house for the first time to live on their own. And the heroism that we're hearing of the counselors at your camp, the staff members at your camp, the counselors at your camp that were doing everything that they could to make sure that these babies and someone else's child made it out alive. You heard those stories and you witnessed those of counselors and staff members also. Tell me what you saw.
I remember seeing all of our counselors kind of in a huddle and then breaking off, and they're all going different ways. But there were a lot of people headed to the quad campus, and
Which is the lower campus where the smaller children were.
and we were all kind of confused, like, well, why is everyone going to the quad campus? And then I heard from my counselor that some of the other counselors had been going down there to get kids off of roofs, and there were kids clinging to clotheslines that the counselors were saving people from. And I remember Britt and Dick doing everything that they could
And
to
that's
be able to drive
director
cars.
that died, Dick, and then his son,
Brett.
who is also an executive there at the camp.
I remember they were driving there to like get the campers out of the cabins, and there were a lot of campers on roofs. There were a lot of campers on mattresses trying to float on the water, stay above the water. I remember a girl in a car, on top of a car. It was really just kind of like everyone was everywhere. Everyone was trying to do as much as they could.
Do you remember the first responders?
I do.
Were they calm, helpful, just doing what they could?
They were very calm. They almost brought a sense of relief from how calm they were. It really did make us feel better being able to see that there was chaos, but it was very collected, and they knew what they were doing to help all the other girls.
I know that this weekend you're going to make a trip back with your mom to gather your belongings at Camp Mystic, and you'll also pick up Nolan's while you're there as well. Are you anxious about being back on the campgrounds?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you want to go?
I really want to go to be able to just almost have closure and be there one more time, but I also want to be there to just be able to sit and pray for those families and really just kind of grieve for them as with my cabin as a whole, because we really do care about everyone else that is going through worse than what my family is going through.
Claire's entire cabin, one of the moms organized for us all to meet on Saturday at the cabin to get there so the girls can go in together and get their stuff and be there together. And so they aren't having to do it individually.
Definitely, you could find some strength in being together. Well, as we wrap this up, is there anything, Claire, I'll start with you. Is there anything you'd like to say to literally people around the world whose hearts are breaking for everybody related to this disaster? To the first responders who helped, to the counselors that helped get people out, to the people who gave their life to try to save someone else. What would be your message to everyone today?
I would love to say thank you to everyone that helped save the girls from our camp. I would love to say thank you to all the first responders especially, but also to our counselors who kept us very calm. I would also like to say that I'm very thankful for the even opportunity that I had to be able to go there as a childhood. And I would also like to say that we are continuing to pray for the families and for the camp itself and the Eastlands and just everyone who was involved. We're going to continue to pray for them.
Nolan, is your message the same?
It's similar, but I'd just also like to say thank you to everyone who was able to help, and my counselors like Preston, Iga, all of them just were able to keep us safe and all that, with a bunch of other children in our cabins too. It was a lot. And also thank you to the people who are sending their praises to us, like prayers and all of that. I just like to say thank you.
Suzanne?
Just thank you to everyone that did everything they could possibly think of to help these families and these children and to bring as many of them home safe as they did. I hate it for all of Kerr County and everybody that was affected by these floods. The devastation when we pulled up, I mean, it looked like a war zone. It's seeing it on TV just doesn't even come close to what we witnessed, and how fast the water was going and how high it had gotten up. It was just horrifying. I just want everybody to remember to pray for these families and these first responders, and just don't take anything for granted. Life can change in a minute, and how your loved ones type.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nolan, Suzanne, you're a loving and brave family, and we're thankful that both of you are safe, and we are prayerful for those who had a very different outcome. We appreciate you being here with us. All right, as we head to break, we remember the lives lost in the Texas Hill Country. At last word, 95 people in Kerr County, which includes 36 precious children, are dead. May we never forget. We're back in a moment.